ZAX 427's fourth set of appendages tapped rhythmically against the monitoring station surface, keeping time with the usual cascade of Earth's electromagnetic chatter. After 3 cycles of monitoring the noisy little planet, they had grown accustomed to its constant stream of consciousness, an endless barrage of radio signals, television broadcasts, and digital noise that most senior analysts dismissed as primitive babbling. The humans never stopped talking. Their signals reached far beyond their solar system, a chaotic symphony of entertainment, communication, and what they called social media. Some of the older species found it crude, but ZAX 427 had developed a guilty pleasure for something called cat videos. Which was why, when the steady stream of signals hitched for a microsecond, ZAX 427 noticed immediately. "That's odd," they muttered, compound eyes focusing on the readout. The quantum displays showed a slight fluctuation in Earth's electromagnetic signature. Nothing serious, probably just a solar flare, or the signature dropped again. Longer. ZAX 427's primary heart skipped a beat. They initiated a level 2 diagnostic of their monitoring equipment, mandibles clicking nervously. The diagnostic came back clean just as Earth's signature dipped a 3rd time. "Control, this is Monitor Station 7, ZAX 427 transmitted, trying to keep their voice steady. "I'm detecting irregular fluctuations in Sol 3's emission patterns. Requesting verification." "Acknowledged 7, came the board response. "Running cross-check now. Probably another one of their nuclear tests. These humans are always." The line went silent. ZAX 427 knew why. They were watching it too. Earth's electromagnetic signature wasn't just fluctuating anymore. It was dropping. Systematically. Deliberately. Like someone was throwing a planet-wide series of switches. "7. Are you seeing?" "Yes," ZAX 427 interrupted, all 4 hands flying across their console. "It's not an equipment malfunction. The pattern is too precise." The Galactic Council's monitoring chamber erupted into activity. Senior analysts rushed to their stations, administrators emerged from their offices, and the massive quantum displays that covered the chamber's dome ceiling shifted to focus on the Sol system. They all watched in stunned silence as Earth's technological signature, a constant presence in their monitoring systems for over 70 years, began to wink out like stars at dawn. First went the high-band frequencies, satellite communications, military broadcasts, and global positioning systems. Then the mid-range, civilian communications, entertainment broadcasts, and navigation beacons. Finally, the low band, radio, weather monitoring, and basic telecommunications. Within 17 minutes, a planet that had never known silence went dark. "Impossible," whispered senior analyst VIX 889, their crystalline form reflecting the emergency lights that had begun flashing throughout the chamber. "No civilization voluntarily." "Look," ZAX 427 pointed at their display. "Power signatures are still active. Cities are still functioning. Whatever this is, it's not a collapse or an attack. They're doing this deliberately." The chamber's main doors hissed open, admitting High Counselor Renta herself, her ceremonial robes swirling around her insectoid form. "Report," she commanded. "High Counselor," ZAX 427 began, surprised to find themselves speaking before their superiors could respond. "Earth has gone silent, not through catastrophe or technical failure. The pattern suggests a coordinated planet-wide effort to cease all conventional electromagnetic communications." "Why would they do such a thing?" Renta demanded. Before anyone could respond, a single signal pierced the silence. Brief, encoded in a quantum frequency that should have been beyond human capability. 3 words that would change the galaxy forever. "We hear you." The High Counselor's compound eyes fixed on ZAX 427. "Analyst, you've been monitoring them the longest. What does this mean?" ZAX 427 stared at the message, their primary heart racing. It means, High Counselor, that either humanity has gone mad, or they've discovered something that made silence worth more than speech. As emergency protocols activated around them, and the council chamber descended into chaos, Zax 427 couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's silence spoke volumes more than their noise ever had. And somewhere in that silence waited answers that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Commander Ixta stood on the bridge of the Galactic Council's flagship Eternal Vigilance *, her scaled hands clasped behind her back as she watched Earth grow larger in the main viewport. After 30 years of commanding emergency response fleets, she'd thought she'd seen everything. But this, a whole planet choosing silence. Status report, she barked, her tail twitching with barely contained tension. No change in Earth's emission patterns, Commander. Zax 427 reported from their temporary station. The junior analyst had been transferred to the fleet due to their expertise with human signals. They maintain only the quantum band transmission we detected earlier, repeating at intervals of exactly 47 minutes. We hear you, Ixta muttered. What exactly do they hear? The bridge crew worked in tense silence as the fleet approached Earth's orbit. Their sensors painted a puzzling picture. Cities still gleamed with light, vehicles moved in orderly patterns, and power grids functioned normally. But the electromagnetic silence was absolute, save for that one repeating message. Commander. The sensor officer's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. New structures detected on the planet's surface. The main display shifted, showing massive installations that hadn't appeared in any previous surveys. They dotted Earth's surface in a precise geometric pattern. Huge circular facilities, each spanning several kilometers, built with technology that shouldn't have been within human capabilities. How long to construct something of that scale? Ixta demanded. At their technological level, the engineering officer consulted his displays. Minimum of 5 years. They built all of this in 3 months. Zax 427 interjected, their mandibles clicking in excitement. I monitored their latest surface surveys myself. These structures simply weren't there. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the bridge. Ixta felt her scales bristle. Impossible construction speeds, quantum communications beyond their capability, and now this voluntary silence. What had humanity discovered? Energy spike. The sensor officer's warning cut through the muttering. One of the installations is active. The nearest facility had come to life, emitting energy signatures unlike anything in their database. The pattern was familiar somehow, resonating with something ancient and half-remembered. Multiple crew members are requesting permission to retreat, Commander, her first officer reported quietly. They're saying this violates too many known laws of physics. It's making them uncomfortable. Ixta understood their fear. Everything about this situation screamed trap to her veteran instincts. But beneath that fear lay something else. Curiosity. In all her years of emergency response, she'd never seen a species simply stop. There was no violence, no catastrophe, just a deliberate descent into silence, followed by achievement that should have been impossible. New transmission, Zax 427 announced suddenly. Different from the repeating message, text only. The words appeared on the main display. Welcome, Commander Ixta. We apologize for any alarm we've caused. You may approach and dock at the following coordinates. We have answers to the questions you're asking. More importantly, we have questions about the answers we found. The message was signed simply, Dr. Amanda Mitchell, Project Resonance. They knew you'd be in command, Zax 427 observed, their compound eyes fixed on Ixta. They knew exactly who we'd send. Ixta stared at the coordinates provided, feeling the weight of command press down on her shoulders. Standard protocol for unknown threats was clear. Maintain distance, gather data, and wait for reinforcements. But standard protocol had never dealt with anything like this. Plot a course to the provided coordinates, she ordered, ignoring the shocked looks from her bridge crew. but maintain weapon systems at ready status. As the Eternal Vigilance altered course, Ixta watched the massive installation grow larger in their view. Its surface seemed to ripple with impossible geometries, and at its center, something pulsed with a rhythm that matched the quantum message's timing perfectly. "Commander," Zax 427 said softly, "what do you think we're going to find down there?" Ixta's tail twitched again as she considered the question. "Either the most elaborate trap in galactic history," she replied, "or proof that we've been looking at humanity all wrong from the start." The installation's pulse quickened as they approached, like a beacon welcoming them home to a place they'd never been. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly beneath the Eternal Vigilance's landing party. Commander Ixta led her team toward the massive facility, its crystalline surfaces refracting the morning sunlight in impossible patterns. The silence was oppressive. No electronics hummed, no machines whirred, just the sound of boots and alien appendages on concrete. "This isn't right," muttered her security chief, antenna twitching. "Where are their defensive systems? Their scanning equipment? Even their primitive cameras?" Zax 427, bringing up the rear, had an answer. "They don't need them. Look at the building itself." The security team paused, really looking at the structure for the first time. What they'd taken for decorative patterns in the crystalline walls were actually complex mathematical equations, flowing and shifting like liquid algorithms. The entire facility was one massive quantum computer, operating on principles that made their most advanced technology look primitive. A single human figure waited at the entrance, a woman in her late 40s, wearing a simple white lab coat. Her auburn hair was streaked with gray, and her eyes carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much, too fast. "Commander Ixta," she called out, her voice carrying clearly across the silent plaza. "I'm Dr. Amanda Mitchell. Welcome to Project Resonance." Ixta's security team raised their weapons instinctively as the human approached, but she waved them down. There was something in the woman's bearing that demanded attention. Not authority exactly, but the quiet confidence of someone who'd moved beyond the need for it. "You've caused quite a stir, Dr. Mitchell," Ixta said, her translator rendering her clicks and hisses into smooth English. "We know." Mitchell's smile held equal parts apology and pride. "Would you believe me if I said we did it to be polite?" Before Ixta could respond, Mitchell gestured toward the entrance. "Please follow me. What we need to show you doesn't work with words. At least, not the kind we speak." The interior of the facility defied explanation. Corridors shifted and realigned as they walked, responding to some unseen programming. But what struck the alien delegation most was the perfect silence. No electronics, no machinery, nothing but the sound of footsteps and breathing. 3 months ago, Mitchell explained as they walked, we detected something in what we thought was background radiation. Patterns that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, unless they were placed there deliberately. They entered a vast circular chamber. Its walls were lined with crystalline structures similar to those outside, but here they pulsed with a deep, steady rhythm. At the center stood a device that seemed to bend reality around itself. "We realized," Mitchell continued, "that we'd been drowning it out. All of us, every spacefaring race, making so much noise that we couldn't hear what was already there, like trying to see stars at noon." Zax 427 stepped forward, their compound eyes reflecting the quantum pulses. "The message you found, what did it say?" Mitchell's expression grew grave. It wasn't just one message, it was billions. An entire conversation that's been going on since before our species existed. We just couldn't hear it over our own voices. She approached the central device, her hand hovering over its surface. "Want to know the really funny part? Your people put some of those messages there, thousands of years ago, before you turned to conventional communications. You'd forgotten your own voices." The chamber hummed with a new frequency, and suddenly the air was filled with quantum patterns that made Ixta's scales tingle. In those patterns, she recognized something. A mathematical sequence her species had abandoned millennia ago, when they'd advanced to electromagnetic communication. "That's impossible," she whispered, but her tail twitched with recognition. "Commander," Mitchell said softly, "impossible stopped being the useful word about 10 weeks ago. What I'm about to show you will rewrite everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. The only question is, are you ready to be quiet and listen?" The quantum patterns swirled more intensely, and in their dance, Ixta saw the truth. Humanity hadn't gone silent because they'd given up on communication. They'd gone silent because they'd finally learned how to truly speak. The quiet room lived up to its name. Not just electromagnetically silent, but somehow absent of all external noise. Commander Ixta felt her scales prickle as she and her team followed Dr. Mitchell into the spherical chamber at the facility's heart. "What you're feeling," Mitchell explained, noting their discomfort, "is true silence. No electromagnetic interference, no quantum noise, not even the background radiation of the universe. We had to build it to hear them clearly." "Hear who?" Zax 427 asked, their mandibles quivering. Mitchell's hands danced across a crystalline console, "the ones who survived the last pulse." The chamber's walls shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by stars, a perfect holographic representation of the galaxy. But something was wrong with the image. Dark gaps appeared in the spiral arms, perfect spheres of emptiness where stars should be. "These are extinction events," Mitchell continued, her voice tight. "Every few million years, like clockwork. We found the pattern in the quantum background, but it wasn't until we achieved total silence that we could read the warnings left behind." Commander Ixta's tail went rigid. "Warnings. Watch." Mitchell adjusted something, and time began to flow backward in the galactic display. The dark spheres filled with light, then emptied again, and again, and again, each cycle lasting precisely 2.47 million years. "Conventional wisdom says these were natural disasters," Mitchell said. "Gamma-ray bursts, cosmic strings, dark matter fluctuations. But look at the pattern." Zax 427 stepped closer to the display, their compound eyes reflecting the dancing lights. "They're deliberate. Each event targets areas of highest electromagnetic output." "Exactly." Mitchell's fingers trembled slightly as she brought up another display. "Something out there doesn't like noisy neighbors. Or more accurately, something uses our own broadcasts to find us." The room filled with a new sound, a deep, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to resonate with their very atoms. In the galactic display, quantum streams of data became visible, flowing between stars like rivers of light. "This is what we heard when we finally shut everything down," Mitchell explained. "Messages left in quantum entanglement patterns, preserved across millions of years. The survivors of each pulse, trying to warn the next generation of civilizations." Commander Ixta felt her primary heart skip a beat. "Our ancient quantum mathematics. We didn't invent them, did we?" "No." Mitchell's smile was sad. "You inherited them from the last cycle's survivors, just as they inherited them from the cycle before. But like every civilization before you, you abandoned them for more efficient broadcast technologies. Started shouting into space instead of listening to the whispers that were already there." She brought up another display, showing a massive object emerging from the galactic core. "We calculated the next pulse. It's coming soon, within decades. But this time, we heard the warning in time. This time, we can prepare." By going silent, Zax 427 whispered, realization dawning in their compound eyes. "More than that," Mitchell said. "The quantum messages don't just warn about the threat. They contain instructions, ways to shield entire solar systems, but only if we maintain absolute electromagnetic silence. The technology we used to build this facility, we didn't invent it. We finally got quiet enough to receive the instruction manual." Commander Ixta stared at the galactic display, watching the cycles of extinction repeat. Everything she thought she knew about her civilization's history, about the natural order of technological progress, was unraveling. "How many?" she asked finally. How many civilizations have been lost because they were too busy broadcasting to hear the warnings? Mitchell's answer was cut off by a new sound, a complex quantum sequence that made the air itself vibrate. In the galactic display, a new pattern emerged, showing thousands of quantum-linked nodes scattered throughout the galaxy. That, Mitchell said softly, is what we've been trying to tell you. We're not alone in our silence. There are others out there, already listening, already preparing. We just couldn't hear them over our own noise. The quantum sequence resolved into a clear message, one that made Commander Ixta's scales ripple with ancient recognition. Her species had once used these exact patterns, long ago, before they'd evolved beyond them. The message was simple. Welcome back to the conversation. The Project Resonance facility had transformed in the week since first contact. Alien scientists from 12 different species now worked alongside human researchers, their diverse forms creating an almost comical contrast against the sterile laboratory environments. But in the quiet room, all differences faded before the magnitude of their discovery. There, Dr. Mitchell pointed to a quantum sequence that rippled through the galactic display. That pattern repeats every time before a pulse event. We thought it was just background noise until we mapped it against historical extinction data. Zax 427, who hadn't left Earth since first contact, manipulated the holographic controls with their fourth appendage. The signal strengthens near the galactic core, but look at the dispersion pattern. It's artificial. Someone's been maintaining these quantum links for millions of years. Not someone. Commander Ixta corrected, her scales shifting colors with excitement. Something. The messages we've decoded suggest an automated system, built by the survivors of the first pulse event. The room fell silent as a new sequence emerged from their quantum sensors. The facility's crystalline walls pulsed in harmony with the signal, creating a visual symphony of light and data. A Centaurian physicist's tentacles coiled in recognition. "This is impossible," they whispered, their translator struggling with their agitation. "These quantum states, they're perfectly preserved across millions of light years. The energy required to maintain such coherence." "Unless," Mitchell interrupted, her eyes shining with the fever of discovery, "you're not fighting entropy at all. What if the system isn't maintaining the quantum states? What if it's using the natural decay of quantum entanglement as part of the message?" The implications hit the assembled scientists like a physical force. The ancient warning system wasn't fighting against the universe's fundamental laws. It was using them as a communication medium. Every quantum decay, every seemingly random fluctuation in the cosmic background, was part of a message written into the fabric of space-time itself. "Here's what we know," Mitchell continued, bringing up a new display. "The pulses originate from what we thought was a supermassive black hole at the galactic core. But look at the energy signature during the last recorded pulse event. The display showed a massive object emerging from the galactic center, its nature defying conventional physics. It moved with purpose, targeting the areas of highest electromagnetic output with devastating precision. It's not random," Zax 427 observed, their compound eyes reflecting the horrifying data. "It's hunting. Hunting civilizations that reach a certain level of electromagnetic output." Commander Ixta agreed, her tail twitching nervously. "The question is, why?" The young human physicist, Dr. James Chen, spoke up from his workstation. "We've been thinking about that wrong," he said, manipulating his own set of quantum data. "We assumed it was targeting developing civilizations, but look at the pattern from a different angle." The display shifted, showing the galaxy from a new perspective. The pulse events, when viewed in sequence, revealed something extraordinary. "It's not hunting," Chen explained, his voice filled with wonder. "It's pruning, like a gardener removing invasive species to protect something more delicate." Mitchell's eyes widened as she saw the pattern. The quantum network, it's not just a warning system. It's what the entity is protecting. Every civilization that switches to electromagnetic broadcasting starts interfering with the quantum signals, degrading the network. So it removes them. Ixta finished, her scales pale with understanding. Not out of malice, but preservation. We've been looking at this backward. The quantum network isn't a response to the pulse events. The pulse events are a response to threats to the network. Zax 427 completed the thought. Which means, Mitchell said softly, humanity's choice to go silent wasn't just about survival. We accidentally stumbled onto the very thing this entity has been protecting for millions of years. We're not just hiding from it. We're joining it. Commander Ixta whispered, watching as more quantum signals became visible in their display, each one a civilization that had made the same choice as humanity. The question is, are we ready for what that means? The quantum network pulsed around them, its ancient messages suddenly carrying new weight. They weren't just warnings anymore. They were an invitation to join something far older and grander than any of them had imagined. The holographic display in Project Resonance's main chamber had become a maze of interconnected quantum signals. After 3 weeks of non-stop work, the combined human-alien research team was finally beginning to understand the full scope of what they discovered. It's like finding a library written into the structure of space itself, Dr. Mitchell explained to the assembled team, her voice hoarse from too little sleep and too much coffee. Each quantum signature is a chapter, preserved across millions of years. Zax 427 manipulated the controls, highlighting a particular sequence they'd been studying. This one repeats more frequently than the others. We thought it was a warning signal, but look at the underlying pattern. The sequence expanded, filling the chamber with shimmering quantum data. Commander Ixta, who had refused to return to the fleet, watched as familiar mathematical symbols emerged from the chaos. "Those are navigation coordinates," she said suddenly, her scales shifting to a deep blue of recognition. "But they're not pointing to any physical location in space." "Because they're not meant to," Dr. Chen interjected, his eyes bright with excitement. "They're coordinates in quantum space. Look at how they align with the pulse events we mapped earlier." Mitchell's fingers flew across the crystalline console, overlaying the coordinates with their previous data. The pattern that emerged drew gasps from the assembled scientists. "It's a shield," Mitchell breathed. "The ancient civilization wasn't just warning us about the pulses. They built a quantum shelter and left us directions to it." The chamber erupted in excited discussion, dozens of species talking at once. But Zax 427 noticed something else in the data, a subtle pattern beneath the more obvious message. "Dr. Mitchell," they called out, their mandibles clicking rapidly. "Look at the quantum decay rate of these signals. They're not degrading randomly." Mitchell joined them at the console, her exhaustion forgotten. As they watched, the quantum signals shifted, revealing a deeper layer of information encoded in their very deterioration. The shield isn't just protection, she realized, her voice filled with awe. It's a transformation protocol. The ancient civilization found a way to shift entire solar systems into quantum space during pulse events. But the energy requirements would be astronomical, a Centaurian physicist protested. "Even if we combine the output of every star in the local cluster." "We don't need to generate the energy," Commander Ixta interrupted, her tail swishing with excitement. "The pulse itself provides it. Look at the timing in these equations. They're not showing us how to fight the pulse. They're showing us how to ride it." The quantum display shifted again, responding to their growing understanding. New patterns emerged, showing how civilizations could use the very force meant to destroy them as a catalyst for their evolution. "That's why the entity targets high electromagnetic output," Mitchell said, the pieces finally falling into place. "It's not just protecting the quantum network, it's creating a selection pressure. Only civilizations that learn to listen, that choose silence over broadcasting, survive to join the quantum network. And once they join," Zax 427 added, their compound eyes reflecting the shifting data, "they become part of the shield itself. Each civilization that makes the transition strengthens the network for those that follow." Commander Ixta stepped forward, her scales now shimmering with bands of deep purple, the color of momentous decisions. How long until the next pulse? Mitchell's expression grew grave. Based on these calculations, 27 years, 4 months, and 13 days. Barely enough time to prepare if we start now. And if we succeed? Zax 427 asked softly, what happens to us, to our civilizations? The quantum display answered for them, showing the transformation in abstract but beautiful patterns. Species that survived the pulse didn't just hide from it. They transcended their physical forms, becoming part of something greater than themselves. We evolve, Mitchell said simply, but only if we can convince enough civilizations to join us in the silence. Only if we can learn to speak with quantum whispers instead of electromagnetic shouts. The chamber filled with a new quantum signal, stronger than any they detected before. As the assembled scientists watched in wonder, a message formed in the heart of the display, not in any spoken language, but in pure mathematics, the true universal tongue. It was time to share what they'd learned. The galaxy needed to hear their silence. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations packed the vast amphitheater, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of evolutionary diversity. But for the first time in Council history, no electronic devices hummed, no communication arrays broadcast. They had come to hear about silence. Dr. Amanda Mitchell stood at the center of the chamber, her simple white lab coat a stark contrast to the ornate robes of the council members. Behind her, a quantum display showed the approaching pulse, its mathematical certainty impossible to deny. 27 years, she began, her voice carrying naturally in the hushed space. That's how long we have to make a choice that will determine the fate of every civilization in this galaxy. Commander Ixta, now acting as Earth's advocate before the council, stepped forward. Her scales shifted through complex patterns of blue and gold, colors of truth and transformation. The evidence has been verified by scientists from 47 worlds, she announced. The pulse is real. The quantum network is real. And the choice before us is real. A Centaurian counselor rose, their crystalline form catching the light. You ask us to abandon technologies that form the backbone of our civilizations, to destroy communication networks that took millennia to build. And for what? To join some ancient quantum network we barely understand. No, Mitchell corrected, her voice firm. We're asking you to evolve. The electromagnetic technology you cling to isn't the pinnacle of development. It's a developmental phase, like a larval stage. The quantum network isn't just a different way to communicate. It's the next step in cosmic evolution. Zax 427, monitoring the quantum feeds from their station, noticed a new signal emerging. Dr. Mitchell, they called out, their mandibles clicking excitedly. We're receiving a transmission from the Arcturus sector. The quantum display shifted, showing a cluster of stars near the galactic core. As the council watched, dozens of electromagnetic signatures winked out, replaced by the subtle shimmer of quantum communications. The Arcturian Confederation has already begun their transition, Mitchell explained, allowing herself a small smile. They've seen the evidence and made their choice. They're going silent not out of fear, but hope. A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. The Arcturians were among the oldest spacefaring civilizations, if they had chosen silence. But our economies, protested a representative from the Orient colonies, our entertainment networks, our data archives, all can be transferred to quantum storage, Commander Ixta countered. The ancient network contains technologies beyond our current understanding. This isn't about losing what we have. It's about gaining something greater. Mitchell raised her hand, and the quantum display showed the galaxy as it appeared after previous pulse events. Dark spheres of extinction dotted the spiral arms like wounds. Every civilization that chooses to continue broadcasting is not just choosing its own fate, she said softly. They're endangering the entire network. The pulse entity doesn't distinguish between individual worlds. It cleanses entire regions of space. The chamber erupted in heated discussion, hundreds of species debating the greatest decision their civilizations had ever faced. Mitchell watched them with understanding in her eyes. Humanity had wrestled with the same choice just months ago. Then, from the highest tier of the chamber, the Ancient Ones spoke. These beings, so old they remembered the galaxy's younger days, had been silent throughout the presentation. Now their quantum thoughts rippled through the chamber like wind through leaves. "We remember," they communicated, their messages bypassing spoken language entirely. "We remember the songs of silence, the quantum harmonies our ancestors sang before we grew loud with pride. The humans have reminded us of what we once knew." The chamber fell silent as the Ancient Ones descended to the floor, their energy forms shimming with purpose. They approached Mitchell. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The quantum network pulsed, stronger than ever before, as if responding to their presence. In that pulse, every being in the chamber felt it. The whispered echoes of countless civilizations that had made this choice before, their quantum signatures preserved in the very fabric of space-time. They were not being asked to face extinction. They were being invited to join the greatest chorus the galaxy had ever known. The choice, finally, was clear. From the observation deck of Project Resonance, Dr. Amanda Mitchell and Zax 427 watched another section of the galaxy go dark. In the 3 months since the Council's decision, over 40% of known civilizations had begun their transition to quantum communication. The view of space was changing night by night, electromagnetic noise giving way to the subtle shimmer of quantum harmonies. The Pleiades Confederation completed their shutdown today. Zax 427 reported, their mandibles moving in what Mitchell had learned was a gesture of satisfaction. Ahead of schedule, just like the others. Mitchell nodded, watching the quantum display track the cascading silence. "It's beautiful, isn't it? Like watching a forest grow in fast motion." The massive quantum processors that lined the facility's walls pulsed with increasing strength as more civilizations joined the network. Each new addition brought not just their own communications, but centuries of stored knowledge, art, and culture, all transformed into quantum data that would survive the coming pulse. Commander Ixta entered the observation deck, her scales now permanently tinted with the deep purple of transformation. "The Ancient Ones have completed their analysis of the earliest quantum signals," she announced. "What they found, it changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." The quantum display shifted, showing layers of communication dating back millions of years. The patterns were hauntingly familiar. "These aren't just messages," Mitchell realized, her eyes widening. "They're memories. The quantum network doesn't just preserve information, it preserves consciousness itself. More than that," Zax 427 added, manipulating the controls with practiced ease. "Look at how the patterns interact. The network isn't a collection of separate signals, it's a single, evolving entity. Every civilization that joins it adds to its complexity, its consciousness." Through the facility's windows, they could see the night sky changing. Where once there had been the constant flicker of electromagnetic noise, now stars shone with crystal clarity against the darkness. And in that darkness, visible only through quantum sensors, an entirely new kind of light was beginning to shine. "We received a new transmission from the galactic core," Ixta said softly. "The pulse entity, it's responding to our silence." The quantum display showed the massive force emerging from the core, but something was different. Its energy patterns had shifted, becoming more ordered, more deliberate. It wasn't approaching like a predator anymore, but like a gardener coming to tend their work. "It recognizes what we've done," Mitchell whispered. "All this time, it wasn't trying to destroy us. It was waiting for us to understand." The facility's quantum processors surged with new activity as information poured in from across the galaxy. Every civilization that had joined the silence was receiving the same revelation. The pulse entity wasn't their enemy. It was their ancestor, the first civilization to make the transition, now serving as guardian of the quantum network it had created. "Look!" Zax 427 pointed excitedly at the display. The quantum patterns were resolving into something unprecedented, a direct communication from the entity itself. The message needed no translation. In pure mathematics, the language of the universe itself, it welcomed them home. Mitchell felt tears in her eyes as she watched the galaxy transform. Humanity's greatest achievement hadn't been reaching for the stars, but learning when to be still. In their silence, they had finally heard the music that had been playing all along. Dr. Mitchell, a young researcher, called from their station. We're detecting new quantum signatures. They're coming from outside the galaxy. The display expanded, showing quantum networks spreading between galaxies like bridges of light. Their silence had revealed not just a galactic community, but a cosmic one. We thought we were so advanced, Commander Ixta mused, her tail moving in gentle waves, broadcasting our presence to the stars, shouting our achievements into the void. But true civilization began the moment we learned to listen. As if in response, the quantum network pulsed with the combined consciousness of thousands of civilizations, each adding their own harmony to the universal song. In the end, humanity's greatest discovery hadn't been how to reach the stars, but how to join their chorus. The age of noise was over. The symphony of silence had begun.